on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Now let's do this.
It's just two men cheating the system by actually getting paid to talk sports.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
Good thing they like being heard, because we don't pay them that much.
It's like people only do things because they get paid, and that's just really sad.
The first of the duo is never shy about letting you know where he stands.
Okay, hot take, but I like your confidence.
The other promises he'll grow on you with time.
It's like a new pair of underwear. At first it's constrictive, but after a while it becomes a part of you.
Together, they're bringing you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and their opinions on sports topics from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
Patrick Wheeler.
Let's stomp these dudes.
And Zach Lancaster.
Everyone is stupid except me.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about. Sport.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work. Show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it. I ain't playing with you. I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa! Everybody got opinions. Let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that. Saying you the best. Stop that, phony. I am not that. Yeah. What are y'all doing out here? What are y'all doing out here? Maybe you should spend a little less time with the women on your arms and a little bit more with your career. I ain't saying I'm the best, but I should be in the top 10. Give me a list of names. I'ma top them. I'm just playing with you. I don't care what the top is.
Welcome in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this beautiful December Tuesday afternoon. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster.
What up?
We are in the show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop today. That's what up. And that's always a good time.
What's your go-to? Do you have a go-to, or are you like a multi-drink kind of guy?
I'm a multi. You know what? I'm just like anybody else. I enjoy cracking a beer.
Sure.
At the end of the day, and you know what goes perfect with a beer?
Yeah, cheeseburger.
Well,
Wings.
Okay, multiple things. I was actually not thinking food at this moment.
What goes good with a beer?
Sports, football.
Hey, now, you know what else goes good with sports? You got Jameson.
Yeah.
These are my go-tos.
Yeah.
Jameson.
Okay.
Crown Black. My vodka is Absolute. Love
okay,
Absolute.
that's I can give it there.
Oh,
yep.
it's so good.
It's good.
And then Jaeger.
Oh,
I'm a Jaeger guy.
I really like Jaeger.
Love
too,
Jaeger
Yeah,
bombs.
I'm glad you brought that up because Jaeger bombs are tough to beat.
Oh.
And you know what? They go well with any occasion.
Yeah, they do.
But something about like Christmas time.
Yeah, it's a really festive
Jaeger.
drink.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a really festive drink. You can leave it out and let it get a little warm.
Yeah, it's fine.
You know,
it's got that like spice a little bit to it sometimes.
My dad can't stand it because he thinks it tastes like black licorice. But I've never had black licorice, and so I just college really got me. I love Jaeger.
I don't know if I'd say black licorice because that's a really distinct taste,
right?
And it's kind of nasty.
And I get it all.
Yeah,
at Brown's Bottle Shop.
That's right. It's
I do.
One-stop shop, super easy.
4 minutes from my house.
Oh, the location is excellent. 128 North Main. It's on the corner of Main and Miller. Really accessible. And if you call 377-5080 in advance, you get free curbside pickup. You can pull up in your car, and they will bring you out whatever you want.
The best thing about this pandemic has been the implementation of curbside delivery, and
everywhere.
I think that I just the way it's taken off and how much people really love it, because every store does it. Like, you wouldn't expect a liquor store to do curbside delivery. And I think that once this pandemic is over, once people start to get the vaccine and things start to open back up fully, I think you're going to see a lot of like you saw Chili's do it, and you saw a few other restaurants that you could pick up like curbside. I think you're going to see a lot of places continue with curbside.
Well, people these days love to not have human contact as much. It's true. As much.
Do not like it. I think I'm gonna get to the point where I don't want to go into restaurants because I don't want to deal with people.
That's
like,
how it is.
Certain restaurants, it's a better experience because you get more chips and salsa and it's free. You don't have to pay for it with your meal, this and that, whatever, free refills. I'm in the wrong line of work because I don't like people.
It's become the thing. Yeah. Skip is still here.
So I'm gonna stop going to restaurants now and just pick up curbside.
That's right. Skip, sorry, I thought you left.
I didn't hear. I just heard chips and salsa.
Oh, okay. I thought he was coming in here about the delivery and all that. Never mind.
Are you destroying my way of life?
we're talking about how curbside has taken over the world.
No, yeah, curbside and delivery.
Yeah, you'd agree with that.
I'm getting to a point where I no longer want to go in and deal with people.
Fully endorse this.
Yeah,
fully endorse. And if you feel free to bring in chips and salsa to the show anytime. I mean,
anytime.
If I ever get a hold of it.
Okay, you heard it.
I love chips and salsa.
I do too.
My wife will actually, and I know that we've gone a little long on this, but my wife, like she works weekend doubles at a nursing facility here in Stillwater. She gets home about 11:45 at night and has to wake up at 6:30 the next morning, and she'll get the jar of salsa out of the fridge and a bag of chips, and that'll be her dinner. She'll eat half a jar of salsa and then go to bed.
Don't blame her at all, man.
No, not one bit.
That's a solid meal. And what goes good with that? Any type of sports and beer.
Sports and beer.
Any type of drink.
Get your beer, Brown's Bottle Shop.
Brown's Bottle Shop.
And the selection.
Oh, it's incredible.
You can pick and choose and create your own.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We're going to talk to Chuck Haley in the second hour, the beer guru there, and he's going to break everything down for us so you can get.
He reminds me of you've seen City Slickers?
Yeah.
One of my favorites of all time. He reminds me of the Ice Cream Brothers, where he's like, name a food, any kind of food, and he can give you the exact perfect ice cream to go for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now he could do that with the beer.
Rum raisin.
Yeah,
like that's him at Brown's Bottle Shop.
Oh,
I've got a smoked salmon with some asparagus and cheesy rice. What do I need to go with it? He'd be like, well, you're going to want to go with this bottle of wine, and I'll tell you why.
That's exactly right.
He's a genius.
He's a genius. He's the beer guru. We're going to talk to him in the second hour. A lot of good stuff coming up in the show today. Frank Bonner's coming on at 3:25 from the Tulsa World.
Can't beat it.
Yeah, we're going to get with him about Oklahoma State football, which is I've figured out that I'm glad we have basketball going on right now, too, to kind of balance
they're
out.
Winning.
Yeah, and they're winning. They're playing well. You can balance it out with the headaches that Oklahoma State football has brought to everybody. So we're going to talk with him about all that. Buy or sell in the second hour. An incredible thing happened in the NFL last night that we're going to get to, involving the Steelers and the Washington football team, which we didn't get to see. And I heard from a lot of different people, by the way, that they were literally miles or a town away from where the game was being broadcast on television, and in other areas like here, it wasn't.
I've got a buddy that lives in southern Oklahoma. He was 2 blocks away.
That's insane.
He had a friend on the north side of town, 2 to 3 blocks away, that got the game. He was just south of that line.
I don't get why the NFL would not have that as a nationwide broadcast.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. If you're going to have specially scheduled games, wow. Yeah, we'll get to all of that coming up in the second hour. When we looked at the Oklahoma State football team yesterday with their offense, and we're going to get to Frank with more of this too, but the defense, I think, is something that we also have to hit on, because there's good and bad with the defense.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Yeah.
It's really, and I'm glad that they were able to come out in that game against TCU and force 5 turnovers. Like, that's great, right? But at the same time, it's the big plays that have really put them in a hole.
Yeah.
Especially recently, from that Oklahoma game on, really. They've allowed a lot of big-time plays, and that was the case here in the TCU game, where I came in and said, Max Duggan has the ability to run the ball like crazy, and he may not necessarily look like it, because I don't think he does, but he's really athletic, sneaky quick, and really, really good decision maker. He can throw the ball too. I mean, we saw more of that in this game, because when you looked at the offense as a whole, there wasn't a lot of other guys on the offensive side that you could just point at and say, he's going to make a difference. He's going to make a difference. No, it was mainly just if they can contain Max Duggan, which is asking a lot, you were going to win that ball game defensively. Now, you force 5 turnovers, and 3 of them are fumbles forced by the same guy, and you score on one of them. All of that, if you were to hear just that from an outsider and say, hey, did Oklahoma State win this game? Yeah, of course they did. They forced 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
So you get the good and the bad there on the defensive side. The main problem I had with it was, if you go to the third quarter touchdown that Duggan scored, it's a 4th and short. It was like a 4th and 1 or whatever it was. And you fully expect them to just plow up ahead through the middle, maybe a QB sneak. But it was an excellent play call by TCU to do the read option, because you had everybody sucked into the middle and nobody accounted for Max Duggan. And that was one of those plays where you think to yourself, okay, the defense, I know it's 4th and short, but they have to know. And that was one of the bigger plays right there that you didn't account for him, and he probably still would have picked up the first down no matter what. But it's really crazy that play right there is one of the biggest shifters in the game. And then I saw later on as well a pretty crazy stat. So far this season, Oklahoma State has allowed 8 plays of 20 yards, or pardon me, against TCU. 8 plays of 20 yards or more, okay? 5 plays, 30 yards or more in the same game.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that because, like you said, you go back to Bedlam. That Bedlam game was one of the worst games we've seen from Oklahoma State in a long time. Long time.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Texas Tech game, and that's where I was a little upset yesterday about it, and I was really upset when I first heard it when Gundy was talking about the defense, and he's like, but we just, we got to quit giving up big plays. That really killed us. And I'm like, no, the offense's inability to move the ball is what killed you. Because if you look at what Oklahoma State did, a TCU, what did I say? They averaged like 28.5 or 29.5 points.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
That's what they had. Oklahoma State held them to their average, which is really good. You look at Oklahoma State, and if Oklahoma State played the way they did all game, the way they did in the fourth quarter, then Oklahoma State scores 36, 40 points, what have you, and they beat TCU by 11, 12 points or whatever. But you look at the rushing. TCU picked up 236 rushing yards. And a good chunk of that came from Max Duggan.
Oh, yeah.
You go back to the Texas Tech game, what killed Oklahoma State on offense? Big running plays. Not necessarily from the quarterback, but then you go back to Kansas State. Running quarterback.
Yeah.
Killed them. They sell out to try to stop the run. Well, you've got to kind of spread your guys out a little bit because they're giving up the right side. They're giving up the left side. You're giving up 15 or 10 yards, 10 to 15 yards across the middle because you're trying to sell out the run. Well, you just drop back and throw it to a slot streaking across the middle, and then all of a sudden he picks up 30, 35 yards. The big plays, I still think the defense won that game.
Sure, I do.
The defense still won. They held TCU to 21 first downs, and you look at the other side of that, Oklahoma State had 16 first downs in the entire game. 5 rushing first downs and 10 passing.
Wow.
When was the last time Oklahoma State only picked up 16 first downs?
Right, and therein lies the issue. Because what do the best teams everywhere have? That's balance. Oklahoma State is basically asking their defense to have a virtually perfect performance to give their team a chance to win because the offense has lacked.
Yeah, this is no longer the 70s and 80s NFL where having an absolute shutdown defense that can crush an offense, and you're going to win 17-14. Yeah. That's not what
this is a score first league.
Absolutely.
Period.
And this offense right now can't score.
No, and it's that's where the issue has been this entire season because I get it. You come into a game like Oklahoma and the defense immediately allows OU to start marching on them and they score pretty easily. You're either going to be in a shootout that entire game and keep yourselves in a shootout with your offense or you're going to lose like they did. That's it, plain and simple. So I get the whole, and then I told you yesterday, I was frustrated with what Gundy said about the defense and still ultimately him, that was kind of the first thing he went to. Because the offense has just been unbelievably bad for most of the season. And I say unbelievably because of the playmakers they have on that team. And it's super, super easy for everybody to lean on the offensive line issues. And as you and I have discussed, no team should have to deal with an offensive line issues, like they have. I get it. And it's super tough to come back from that. But the best teams always find a way because they are balanced enough. Oklahoma State is not balanced enough. This entire season, you had the defense tipping the scale the entire time. Oh, and by the way, with the way they were playing, do you really expect them to be able to keep that up all season long defensively? And that's what teams got better in the Big 12.
And that's what's impressive is despite giving up a few despite giving up a few big plays each game, they still have played incredibly well. I get that they lost Rodarius to an injury, and I get that they lost Trey Sterling to that lower leg injury, but you look at what this defense has done, other than OU, of course, and even then they found a way to, create a couple of stops and force a couple of punts, but Oklahoma State has done really well. Texas Tech was a bit of an anomaly, based on the 3 big plays where they scored, which is just insane. Yeah. But then that game, they scored 14 points off of Oklahoma State scored 14 points off of turnovers, or 7 off of turnovers, and then 7 on a kickoff return. So you take those 14 points away from defensive players, Oklahoma State loses that game. Mm-hmm. And I get that the defense gave up some pretty big plays, but it was still an impressive performance. And you go back to TCU, incredibly impressive performance. Kansas State, they struggled, but they found a way to win that ball game. You look at Jason Taylor with a fumble recovery for a scoop and score. So I think it's incredibly unfair to expect the defense to have to be out there 65% of the game and create stops because the offense can't move. But when you look at and it's easy to get frustrated at the defense for giving up big plays. But when you look at what Oklahoma State did, we get a strip and we get a fumble recovery. What does the offense do? 3 and out. They're on and it's not even a long 3 and out.
I'm glad you brought that
it's
one up.
They're on the field for 45 seconds, and then the defense is back out there. I don't blame the defense.
No, that sequence right there was so quick.
Absolutely, there were 2 of them.
Yeah, 2, and the momentum.
Maybe 3.
The momentum
gone.
It's just completely out of the entire building. So that one right there was when I kind of thought, oh boy, if we can't even get a first down off of that and at least try to sustain a drive.
That's when I lost my hope.
Me too. It was gone.
Especially the second time it happened, and it was like 2 or 3 drives apart. It wasn't even in separate quarters.
No. Get him on Twitter at ZLancaster91. I'm at the Patty Wheels. Show brought to you today by Brown's Bottle Shop, 128 North Main in Stillwater. You can call them at 377-5080 in advance and get free curbside pickup. When we come back, Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World is going to hop on the afternoon sports drive. That's next.
You can call till your voice is running out, but I can't hear you now. I can't hear you now. I'm somewhere far away where you can't bring me down, so I can't hear you now. I can't hear you now. Yeah. Run it back, tell them what I'm coming at. I was on the hit there, now I'm done with that.
Welcome back to the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Tuesday. Show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop, 128 North Main, Stillwater. 377-5080. Call them in advance. Get free curbside pickup. They're your one-stop shop for holidays, New Year's Eve. Spirits, wines, beer, and stocking stuffers. And joining us as always on Tuesday, Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World. Frank, what's going on, man?
Going well. Enjoying this good weather today.
That's right. It's December 8th, and we're dealing with 66-degree weather.
Welcome to Oklahoma, Frank.
Yeah,
You've been here over a year, and you're still not used to it.
Don't get much of that in Indiana.
No, that's for sure. This is nice. We're all enjoying that, no doubt. So, Frank, remind me. I think you said you were actually at TCU, right, for the football game this past weekend?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, so initially in that game, when the defense had the scoop and score early, were you managing some excitement there? Were you thinking that, okay, if the defense plays like this, it could be a long day for TCU?
Yeah, I thought because I think right before, like they forced a 3 and out or something right after. Like they had some pretty good first defensive series, and I was like, well, okay, this is a way to respond. I think the game is going to go how I anticipated it was going, which because I said on here, I think it was 35-20 is what I said, and it looked like early that it was going to go just around that way.
Yeah, the pick was. I thought about that too, and you said that. I was like, man, that could end up being something like that. And
well, technically, it almost did.
It almost
kind of was that way.
We all know what it ended, but yeah, it almost was. As far as the offense, though, Frank, in terms of running, we talked about that too last week. Was can Dez stay hot on the ground? We came in hoping for another big day. He went over 100 yards on the touchdown, but I think TCU adjusted and really shut him down in the second half.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that. I mean, he had a really big first half, and obviously, going into the second half, TCU is probably like at halftime, we've got to slow down their run game. And in that third quarter, Tylan Wallace had the big 55-yard catch, and, he had, 3 catches in that third quarter. I was anticipating, well, in the fourth quarter, they're going to be paying attention to Tylan Wallace, and maybe Jackson will pick it back up again. But then, we all know Wallace went out. So I wonder how much of that fourth quarter was because there was no Wallace on the field to, help give Jackson a break.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, it's that ability to not have to go to him all the time for sure. As far as throwing the football, what did you like and not like out of Spencer in that ball game?
And we said this before. I want I want him to know that Wallace isn't his only option. He has some other players. He's got Jelani Woods. He's got Stoner. Look at your tight end a little bit more. We all know Wallace is, he had a great game, not even playing in the fourth quarter. But you can look elsewhere on the field.
No, I think that's fair. And as you brought up Jelani, were you surprised to finally see him kind of get that target? I know it ended up being an interception, but finally get a target in the red zone at least?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say surprised, but I would say it was about due. It sucks that the time that they did go his way in the red zone, it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. But it was nice to see his number called, late down the stretch. It just didn't play out the way you would have wanted it to play out.
Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. So as far as the offense as a whole, we come into this game at TCU, and I think it's fair to say it's been a disappointment for the offense this season, because of the hype that they did receive this offseason as well. It was one of the top offenses in the Big 12. But overall for you, Frank, if it was a disappointment, how big of a disappointment has the offense been to you this season?
To be quite honestly, I'm going to say a huge disappointment, just because everybody's come to expect OSU offense to be a certain way in terms of the high scoring and everything, and it's an even bigger disappointment when you finally have a defense that has played as well as that they've played. I mean, you've got your defense, forcing 5 turnovers in one game and things like that, and as an offense, you don't even have to be that great to win some of these games, and they aren't even playing at a level enough that can complement, this defense. And so I think it's a major disappointment when you look at the excitement coming into this year of all the pieces that they had. And I understand, Gunny talked about the injuries, especially at the offensive line. Obviously, that's going to hurt you. Nobody's, asking the offense to break records with the injuries that they've had. But you would assume that they can still at least, put enough points on the board to give your defense a chance. I mean, you got your defense scoring touchdowns for you, and you still can't win the game. I think it's a big disappointment this year for the offense.
Yeah, and that Frank Zach here, obviously. That was actually something I was going to bring up. You create 5 turnovers. You look at 3, I think at least 3 of those turnovers, and the offense doesn't even, they go 3 and out on the next drive, and 2 of those were late in the game there in the fourth quarter. And then you look at the offense, they had on the day 16 total first downs, 5 rushing, 10 passing, and then you pick one up on a penalty. And then you have after, and I get that there were a few big plays that the defense gave up, but when you look at how long the defense was on the field and you look at the workload that they had to do, consecutively back to back, they still held TCU to 21 first downs. They still held TCU to their scoring average on the season. And then after the game, in the opening statement, you have Mike Gundy talking about the disappointment of giving up the big plays, and we need to, we got to limit the big plays. I get the big plays are a problem, but the defense did their job. The defense scored 7 points, or at least 6 points on the scoop and score. I think that was the extra point that was missed. They create 5 turnovers. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Kansas. if you create 5 turnovers, you should win the ball game, and the offense just completely sputtered. So what were your thoughts on, after the game, when, during that press conference, and then after the press conference when Gundy was like, well, the defense has to step up, they got to limit those turnovers, or they limit the big plays.
Yeah, I think and even the defensive players and Jim Knowles made similar comments of not giving up big plays. And I know that defense holds themselves to a high standard, so, they're saying all the right things. But, with Gundy saying it, I think he's just trying to take as much heat off the offense as he can, because everybody can look at this team and know that the offense isn't doing his job. And I don't know if that's him, because Casey Dunn is in his first year as coordinator. He's had a rough year with injuries. I don't know if he's trying to maybe indirectly take some heat off of Casey Dunn, because, it's always, yes, you lose and you win as a team, but it's always comments like the ones you just said that kind of, try to take some heat off the offense. And like you said, at the end of the day, here's the thing. When Amon got his last strip fumble and recovered and had the ball on the TCU 26 with like 3.5 minutes left, you've got 26 yards, and this is right after you threw an interception. They gave you the ball back.
Yeah.
You've got 26 yards to go with plenty of time to tie the game, and you basically do nothing with it. Like, that's why you lost the game. Not that specific play, but just the offense not being able to generate anything after the turnovers. That's why you lost. I mean, it wasn't the big plays. They didn't help, but that's not – the defense made up for those big plays with 5 takeaways.
Absolutely.
Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World joining us here on the afternoon sports drive. And Frank, with Tylen, he had the touchdown, good game, retweaked the knee. Does it make sense for him, in your mind, to play again this season?
I'm going to say yes, and here's why. Normally I would say no, but, Tylen had the injury last year, right? And there were questions about, could he come back as the same player? How durable is that knee? And obviously for the course of the season, he's shown that he's back the same player. The knee looks durable. But with the fact that he has an injury tweaking the knee, if he can play, if he's healthy enough to play, I would play to let NFL scouts know that he's okay. I think that's important for him to be able to say, look, it tweaked a little bit, they shut me down, but I'm actually fine. I'm okay, and you see that I'm playing in this game. If he's healthy enough to play, I think in this case it's beneficial for him. I don't know how many other people think that way, but that's the way I look at it.
Well, and that's what I said yesterday, and I even likened it a little bit to that's just the kind of person that Tylen is. I think that Tylen at least plays the regular season game because he's always been, very team oriented. I'm here for my brothers. If I can play, I'm gonna play. If it were me, and Patrick and I talked about this yesterday. If I could, if I could talk to, Tylen, Chuba, Rodarius, and any other guy that, any other younger guy that's thinking about opting out, if I could say, listen, this is what you need to do, and they would listen to me and they would implement it, I don't think it makes sense to them to play. And it doesn't, and it's not because, I think that if they opt out, they're quitting on the team or they're not quitting on the team or whatever. But when you look at this season going into it, you go back to January when they had the pep rally in the student union. Rodarius decides to come back, and that turned out to be massive boost, not only for the team, but for him as well. You look at Chuba announcing he's coming back. That was massive after a 2,100-yard season. Tylen announces he's coming back. Chances are he's going to win the Biletnikoff, and I think that's still the case. I think he deserves and he's earned the Biletnikoff this year. You get Tevin Jenkins deciding he didn't announce that he was coming back, but Tevin Jenkins came back and earned himself a ton of money. And then all of a sudden COVID hits. And you can't have a spring, and the summer's all discombobulated. Still going into fall camp, you're thinking, all right, this team has a legitimate chance of making the college football playoff. We know what they have. Spencer Sanders should be more improved. You know, the fans, they hadn't seen him, but they were excited about Illingworth, the backup quarterback, you know, and then you lose Dylan Galloway, you know, medically retires. You've got to cut another offensive line starter and then an offensive line backup. You lose 2 offensive linemen in the first game for a majority of the season. And those offensive line, you know, I don't care what team it is, those offensive injuries are detrimental. But as soon as Oklahoma State, and it ended up not mattering because, you know, OU won and Iowa State won, and so they both clinch it. But going into the TCU game, if Oklahoma State wins out, then I think those guys continue to play simply based on the fact that there's a chance of making the Big 12 title game. But now that they have zero chance of making a Big 12 title game, there's no sense in the NFL bound players to risk it. And we saw on Saturday where Darius Williams leaves with an injury, Tylen leaves with a tweaked knee. You know, if I'm those guys, I'm looking at Tevin thinking, you know, maybe he was right. You know, and Tevin, if it had been any other kind of injury other than a back injury, I think maybe Tevin probably decides to stay. But now that they have no chance at a Big 12 title game and they're going to play in Fort Worth or San Antonio or Houston, what's the point? I understand where you're coming from, but the fact that Tylen came back this year and almost looks better than he did last year before the injury, for me, I think that would be enough for NFL scouts. And if he didn't re-injure it, he just tweaked it, then I think if you're Tylen, you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to these NFL scouts and I'm going to let them know my knee is just fine. It was just a bit of a tweak because I had a guy land on me and it kind of rolled up, whatever. But if I'm those guys, you know, if I'm those guys' parents or whatever, they don't have agents, but that's against the rules. But you know, if it were up to me, it makes no sense for those guys to try to risk injury, and it's not quitting on the team. They're, you know, those guys could make generational money. Those guys can affect their families for forever, 3-4 generations down the line. So for me, it doesn't make sense.
And I agree with you 100% for everybody not named Tylen Wallace. Like, I agree with everything you said. And if Tylen Wallace decided not to play, it's not necessarily a bad decision.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's never, it's not a bad decision for any of them not to play. But I just think if there was any player who had any type of incentive to choose to play, it would be Tylen.
And I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Frank, as far as the Baylor game, we know that it's already been moved once, and Baylor's had tons of issues with COVID and all that. Did you think this game would ever actually get played at some point this season?
I thought it would, because I thought when we got to this point, there would still be some Big 12 championship implications that needed to play out. Like, I thought that, if you were like OU and you're hoping that OSU loses this game because you need them to lose to get in or something, well, obviously you want that game to be played. So I thought they would get it in because they would need to get it in because it would be that close at the top. But since it doesn't matter now, you're not going to cancel it just because it doesn't matter. But I thought they were going to try to get it in just because the conference needed to get it in for the race reason.
Is this a must-win game for Oklahoma State, Frank? And I'll kind of explain it a little bit. Obviously, there's no implications. If Oklahoma State loses, it's not like this loss is going to keep them out of the Big 12 title game. But if you look at the perception of the program right now, the perspective of Gundy, the perception of the fan base right now, a lot of them are really, really upset. You get on message boards, you get on social media, and they're blasting Gundy, they're blasting Spencer and Casey Dunn and the offense, and they can't do anything. You look at this game, and going back to last year in the Texas Bowl, I figured that would be a must-win game. And you could sense the disappointment when they lost, but then you had Tylen and Chuba and Rodarius announce they were coming back, and so that kind of eased a lot of pain. But the way this season has gone, the expectations going into this season, everything's gone by the wayside, and you're going to end up playing in some crummy bowl in Texas. Is this Baylor game a must-win to try to get the, just a perception standpoint for Gundy and this offense?
I definitely think it's a must-win. I think these next two games, the Baylor and the Bowl game, is a next win because, like you said, look at how it was going into last year.
Absolutely.
It was like, oh, we need the defense to get better. We're looking to, bounce back this and that. Nobody expected them to be ultra great, and they had 5 losses. And then you go into this year, you guys are talking about you want to compete for a national championship. If you lose, even one of these 2 games or both of these 2 games, you're going to have the same amount of losses or one short that you did last year.
Yeah.
Which basically that means you had the same year in a year that, this and I said this before the year, I was like, if you can't win the conference this year, and this was obviously before COVID, and so I understand COVID throws a wrench in everything, but just from a competitive standpoint, everything they had on paper, if you can't win the conference this year, when will you?
Yeah.
And so I think for that, you can't fall too deep. This definitely is a must-win. This game and the bowl game, these last 2 games, they've got to win them.
Absolutely.
Right, go OSU basketball. Let's flip it over there real quick. They got that win over Oakland on Saturday. A slow start, but they turned it around pretty quick. It's tonight against Oral Roberts. So with the way Oklahoma State played against Oakland, like turning it around, finally ending on a high note there and still staying undefeated. How are you feeling about the Oral Roberts game tonight?
I think OSU will win, but I am curious is, Oral Roberts in their last game against Wichita State, they shot really well from deep. And so I'm curious, is OSU going to come and allow Oral Roberts to shoot well like they did Oakland, or is the Oakland game going to cause them to clamp down, on the 3-point shooting? I don't know, but that's the main thing I'm interested to see is how do they respond going into this team who also feels like they're shooting hot right now.
With this Oklahoma State team, and we saw Cade, get the newcomer award. Is there any concern for you with a couple of times that we've seen with them starting somewhat slow this year? If that were, for instance, going to trickle over into conference play, how much concern is there for you with that, or is it just a young team still trying to gel?
I think it's all growing pains from a totality of a season point. There isn't, a whole lot of concern. But if we're talking about just starting the Big 12 conference, yeah, there's concern because you're going to see it. Like the thing about young teams, especially young basketball teams, this team is going to lose a game or 2, or possibly more that they shouldn't. But then the talent they have is also going to allow them to win a game or 2 or possibly more that they shouldn't. So, I mean, with young teams, you're going to see them be in close battles with teams that aren't as talented as them. You're going to see them in close battles with teams that are more talented than them. I think it's going to be a roller coaster of a year for this group. And they're going to have slow starts. They're going to have some quick starts against, teams like Texas possibly or, Baylor or whatever. We're just going to see them grow up as the year goes on.
That's Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World. Frank, appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you next week, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and glad to hear, Zach's back to normal.
Yeah, it's good to be back to normal. It's nice.
I bet. Well, I look forward to talking to you next week.
All right.
See you, Frank.
Appreciate it. That's Frank Bonner, Tulsa World. You can follow him on Twitter at Frank_Bonner, too. Good stuff as always. Appreciate him giving us some time there. We talked to him for hours, honestly.
I like Frank.
For sure. Gives us a lot of good insight. Oklahoma State football, basketball. We got basketball tonight against Oral Roberts. That is a 7 o'clock tip-off.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. I won't be there tonight, but I'm counting down the minutes to when I'm back in GIA.
Yeah, for real. That'll be a fun one.
I tell you right now, though, I won't be taking the stairs.
Yeah, you will
just might kill me.
I don't blame you at all. When we come back on the afternoon sports drive, we will take a look at that Oklahoma State basketball game tonight against Oral Roberts. They're trying to stay undefeated and try to get undefeated record in that non-conference play. Only 2 games left tonight, and then Wichita State. Then it's on to the Big 12 games, which will be a lot of fun. Show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop, 128 North Main, Stillwater. Call them 377-5080. We're back after this.
Whoa. Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, and never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below. Maybe I'm just falling
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Its first hour has flown by.
Yeah, it has.
Just absolutely flown by. Big shout out Frank Bonner joining us there. Appreciate him as always. Good stuff. You know, we were talking about Oklahoma State basketball tonight, and for some teams, year in and year out, I think it's hard to get, unless you're just like a diehard fan, it's hard to get super excited about non-conference matchups, especially when teams just blow through them, right?
Yeah.
As I told you, with the exception of last year, my goodness, watching North Carolina my whole entire life, they're just like any other blue blood. Aside from playing some teams in tournaments every now and again, like they have this year, you run through a bunch of no-names that have no business. The only reason they're there is because they're making money, right?
That's what I was going to say. Until you get to that level of like Kansas and Kentucky, where you're matching up with 2 or 3 top 10 teams to start the season, then you're just like, who the hell's Texas Southern?
It's super, it's super hard to get in and really into a matchup with Elon or Texas Southern or even Oral Roberts.
Sure,
but
this year's a little different.
It's a little different, and the interest level that this team holds.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can get excited. We've only seen 4 games right now.
Yep.
4 games?
This will be 5.
Yeah. And every single game has been just, I've been locked in every single moment because you never know who's about to make the next big play. Somebody's going to make a big play.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen this entire season. So there's excitement to be had here for this, reasonably. And that's why we're still holding on for the hope that this postseason ban will either not happen or we can ride through it at least through the tournament before they even come away with the appeals decision.
Yeah, my feeling, and someone told me this back in the summer, that it's going to have a Memphis, like the direction that Memphis took with James Wiseman, the way it's going, the way that COVID has made everything slow way down, there's a chance we may not know what the appeals decision is for maybe another month or 2. But even if the appeals process comes out in the middle of the season, the way I feel it's going is Oklahoma State's going to file an injunction. They're going to file a restraining order against the NCAA, and if Oklahoma State is good enough to make the tournament, Oklahoma State plays in the tournament. Whether the appeals gets, the decision gets overturned and they say, you know what, maybe we were a little too harsh considering we did nothing to, who was it? Auburn or LSU or whoever.
No, Auburn did the self-imposed. They took themselves out. LSU.
Was it LSU?
I think it was. Yeah.
And they essentially get a slap on the wrist when you're looking at Oklahoma State and you're like, well, we're losing 3 scholarships. You got a postseason ban. You've got, over the course of 3 years, the scholarship reduction and numerous other things, including a lot of self-imposed penalties. But when you look at it, was an assistant coach that had nothing to do with on the court performance. Right. They benefited 0, and he got like $27,000 or something crazy, like between $23,000 and $27,000.
That's why so many of us this whole time
just makes no sense.
No, and we've been like, it's what. Give them the punishment in terms of take some scholarships away. Fine. Give them the punish the university.
Yeah. Don't punish these kids.
And if anything, you're punishing somewhat Mike Boynton, which
absolutely
is understandable. But my goodness, with the kids and a guy like Cade Cunningham, who I don't know how many times I got to say this. When's the next time we're gonna have someone like Cade Cunningham come to Oklahoma State?
The last time they had a player like this was it Gerald Green or Jeff Green? I can't remember the guy. I think it was Gerald Green was his name.
I mean, Marcus Smart had the hype, but
Gerald Green never showed up.
Right.
He went straight to the NBA.
Right.
And he was the number 1 overall prospect.
That goes in it with as well. I mean, you get players that now have the option, which is glaring, and we've already seen a bunch of top prospects do it, go straight to the G League and make a lot of money.
Yeah, Gerald Green.
Yeah.
Gerald Green.
So I feel like that if anything, and that's why you've seen names like Dick Vitale, Jay Billis, big-time college basketball personalities have called out repeatedly for the NCAA to reverse this, for the fact that, and that's something that we hit on immediately when this came down, was it doesn't do the NCAA any good to not have Cade Cunningham in the tournament. Exactly. If they want to get back into the NCAA tournament this year and actually have it, which we already know is had its hurdles already, but they're going to have it. Why wouldn't you want the best product out there?
Yeah, Cade Cunningham is the kind of player that Billy from northern Wyoming is going to turn his TV on to watch.
Right. If you're a college basketball fan and you say, Well, first of all, I'm in my brackets and I picked Oklahoma State to advance.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I get to also watch someone who has possibly the number 1 pick in the NBA draft on there. Oh, and hopefully by that time he's playing completely like it, which I think he will be.
Well, and you see bursts from Rondell Walker. We saw bursts from Bryce Williams, Isaac Likely. He has done everything right other than score an obscene amount of points, and he did well against Oakland the other day.
Yeah.
So if Ice continues to play, like if Ice is able to get back to the level he was at before he got mono last year, combined with all the other players that are continuing to get better, and then, oh, by the way, you throw Cade Cunningham into the mix, Oklahoma State very possibly could be one of the more exciting teams to watch in the country.
No doubt.
Why would the NCAA not want that in the NCAA tournament?
Get him on Twitter at ZLancaster91. I'm at the Patty Wheels. It's because the NCAA is the NCAA.
We're fixing to talk some liquor.
Yes, we are. Coming up in this second hour.
It's almost as exciting as the mini horse.
You're telling me we could combine these two things right here and have a really exciting time. Think about that.
Imagine seeing a mini horse after a trip to Brown's Bottle Shop.
Wait a minute. Is that what I think I just saw? And you're like, yeah, that's it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, what a good time. Whew. What a good time. You're only going to hear it here
and
on the
guess
Afternoon
what?
Sports Drive.
Brown's Bottle Shop, they're going to be there way later than 5 o'clock.
It's exactly
You
right.
can go and see the folks at Brown's Bottle Shop until like a long time.
There's no cutoff.
No. Well, there is.
Well,
but
but
late.
it's not like
it's late.
You got to be there at 5 o'clock.
You aren't going to want to be out when they go home. You're going to want to be home.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Tonight's perfect example. Oklahoma State basketball. Sit back, have a beer, watch Oklahoma State dominate.
Shiner.
Ooh, it's going to be fun.
I'm a Shiner guy.
Shiner. Yeah. Okay, I can
they
get
have some
with that.
really good Shiner at Brown's Bottle
Yeah,
Shop.
for sure. Well, we're going to talk with Chuck Haley when we come back, the beer guru. He's going to tell us all about that. Also, buy or sell in hour number 2. A crazy couple stories out of the NFL to get to and college football.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, the Big Ten.
Oh, man. We'll get to all of that coming up in the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make that on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. It's hour number 2. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. Show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop. And joining us now from Brown's Bottle Shop is the beer guru, Chuck Haley. Chuck, what's going on today?
Much. Just kind of relaxing so far.
You guys been busy?
A little bit, so since I've been here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, hey, we were talking about a ton about the different beers that are available at Brown's Bottle Shop, and I know that's just the kind of the tip of the iceberg, what you guys have going on there. But right now, I said this with Oklahoma State playing basketball tonight. It's a perfect little addition, right? You come home, after work, you turn on the game, and you need a beer. Well, the best place to go is Brown's Bottle Shop. What are you guys offering right now?
Right now we got Shiner Holiday Cheer, Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. We got a Stone, a mixed 12-pack of different IPAs, 12 Beers of Christmas, or I think is what it's called. Think what else we got in. Of course, got a couple porters and stouts, although it's not quite cold enough today. But yeah, pretty much any variety you want, we may be able to get for you.
Well, everything else that's going on right now in terms of getting Christmas gifts ready, what would be your go-to? I know you guys have gift boxes and liquors available, your wines and your holiday gift bags. What all would you recommend for anyone coming in looking to get their gifts for their favorite alcohol or their friends that, their beer drinking buddies, all that good stuff?
Well, for beer, we got a Prairie gift set that comes with a glass. I think that's the only beer we got. Oh, no, we got a Lindemans Framboise, too, that comes with a glass. For whiskey, I think we still got some Crown gift sets that come with a glass and some Woodford Reserve. Comes with a really nice glass, as far as I'm concerned. Couple tequilas, some Casamigos. They have a pretty nice glass this year.
What if I am getting ready to celebrate New Year's Eve and I need something sparkly, something bubbly? What else you got for me there?
For bubbles, don't actually have those displays up yet, but we still got some good selections. If you want a true French champagne, my favorite's Veuve Clicquot Demi-Sec. It's fantastic, has a nice little bit of sweetness. Got, let's see, Moet, or the Chalot Moet Nectar Imperial, which is another really good one, and their Brut Imperial. Want to go a little lower, we got Gruet. They do a solid job out of New Mexico. Of course, you can do a Prosecco or a Cava. Prosecco's an Italian-style bubbles, and Cava's your Spanish-style. Both are excellent.
Sure, and we're talking to beer guru Chuck Haley at the Browns Bottle Shop. So I also know that you guys have we've been talking about this as well throughout the whole show, your curbside pickup, right? Still available right now?
Yes, it is.
Now tell us a little bit about that process. Like, how easy is that? If I want to order anything, beer, spirits, wines, whatever, I just got to pull up and I can get it straight from the car, right?
Yep, you just give us a call and tell us what you want, and we'll get it rung up and come collect payment.
There you go. Super easy. Super easy.
Time, or if you have time, you can call a little bit ahead, and we'll have it just sitting here ready.
Perfect. Yeah, it's really easy to do. They're located at 128 North Main, Stillwater, corner of Main and Miller. That's Chuck Haley, beer guru at Brown's Bottle Shop. Chuck, thanks so much for spending some time with us, and we'll definitely be checking all those new selections out, and just in time for the holiday season. Appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, that's Chuck Haley. Appreciate his time, as always. Brown's Bottle Shop, #1 stop for everything you need liquor-wise. And this is, like I said, the things they have going on right now in terms of Christmas specials.
Yeah.
I said the other day when we were talking about Brown's Bottle Shop, how easy is it to get down, stuff in the stocking, the very bottom, you get through all the other stuff you need, and it's like, oh, that's good, that's good. Are those Jell-O shots I see down there? Right? That's big time.
And even if even if you don't know what that person would want, you can get a gift card.
That's exactly right.
You don't even have to buy them anything. And that's
you go get what you want.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Give them a call, 405-372-5080.
372-5080. They're open. You have the hours right there by chance?
Close at 10 o'clock.
Oh, you got
so much time.
You got plenty of time to get there before the game.
You got time after the game.
You got time. If the game doesn't go your way.
You want to get loaded, even if the game goes your way.
That's true. Celebrate or forget about it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it's kind of in the center of Stillwater, so it's not hard to get to.
Yeah.
You don't have to drive that far.
Wow.
And if you're at the arena, it's a 5-minute walk from the arena. It's a 45-second drive from the arena. Park on in.
Great stuff.
Just stop in.
Go check them out. Brown's Bottle Shop, 128 North Main, Stillwater, the location corner of Main and Miller.
So this is a little off topic of what you want to get into, but we talked a lot about Russell Westbrook landing in Washington, D.C. It's not political, so don't get upset with me talking about this, but Joe Biden, there's a quote floating around saying 100 million shots in the first 100 days, and I'm assuming that's of his tenure as president. And someone retweeted it and said, Joe Biden in D.C., watch Russell Westbrook in D.C., and they put the shaking hands emoji, as in, like, Russell Westbrook's going to take 100 million shots in his first 100 days with the Wizards. That's so perfect.
I mean, it's not wrong.
No, it's so perfect. It upsets me because he does take that many shots.
He does, but it's just, look, I mean, you have to be a lover of what Russell Westbrook brings to the table.
And I am.
And I am, too.
Yes.
There's those people, it's either yes or no.
Early buy or sell, Russell Westbrook a Hall of Famer?
Oh, man.
If he
needs to win a
I was going to say, if he wins a championship, and that may be one of my buy or sells. It might not be, but I don't think Russell wins a championship, but I think Russell's on a team that wins a championship. And if that's the case, I think he's a Hall of Famer because he's got the 3-point record, he's got an MVP, you add a championship to that, and just how electric he's been and the scoring he has. I think maybe not a first round ballot, but
I just want him to he needs to be winning a championship at some point, but also I hope it happens when he's still able to contribute.
Yeah, he's not a Derek Fisher with a
He's
Thunder.
not a Derek Fisher.
Not that they play,
and
not that they won it, but
and he's not a Carmelo trying to extend a career.
God, how embarrassing.
Yeah, I just want it to be he has the ability to contribute.
You think Melo sees Vince Carter and he's just like, I can do that? because Vince, even until the day he retired, contributed and was good. And Melo has like one out of every 6 or 7 games.
With those guys, I think it's hard to, if you look at it, like sports evolve.
That's an old school sport.
Basketball has evolved big time in terms of the younger generation.
Well, and if I don't think these younger guys try to extend it like Kobe or like LeBron. LeBron will play for another 4 or 5 years. You know, or Melo or Vince Carter. Like, there's just a handful of guys that play. Tim Duncan is a good example. Played until you just absolutely can't play anymore. These younger guys, it seems like baseball nowadays where it's a real analytical point scoring type of game. And I could see these guys like, you know what? I'm 33. I've made a couple $100 million. I can still walk without having to limp or ice my knees after 20 minutes. I'm okay.
Yeah, no, I completely see that as well. Let's get into it, and you know what time it is.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You'll pick up the phone and you'll sell, sell, sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Make money, money, make money.
Buy or Sell Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. All right, Zach.
I got a tough one for you today. It's one that could start some arguments, and it's one that I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Okay.
I think I do.
Okay.
Spencer Sanders doesn't turn the ball over on Saturday against Baylor. Buy or sell?
Sell.
I'm sorry, Spencer.
You know what? There's been so much, and you and I have even said it, where it's like, really want Spencer to succeed at a high level.
100%.
I think he's going to at some point. But still, the biggest knock to his game coming in this year was protecting the football. And it has been, and that's something I looked at this last game, the interception. I told you, I'm fine with admitting if it's a tough play that, you know, somehow comes down, a guy comes down with the ball, and while the TCU player made a great grab on that ball, there's no way that it ever should have been thrown over Jelani Woods. He's 6'7" for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You hit him in the gut. And that's not a hard throw. He was open in the seam. Anybody can make that throw. Any quarterback can make that throw, and he was open. So that right there, I can look at the turnovers, and I just think his decision making is something that desperately has to improve. And that's not just turnovers. That's also, like Frank said, it was funny. You know, we got Frank on. What was the first thing he talked about with Spencer? Still not finding everybody else in the open field. He doesn't look in the middle of the field. And guess what that is? It falls under decision making, not looking that way. So all that combined, it has to improve. And it's not just for Oklahoma State, for him personally. If he ever wants to take that next step, you live with the occasional turnover every now and again. But when they come at the times that it seems to come with Spencer Sanders, and the way that he throws the ball away or fumbles or whatever, like, man, those are things you got to get better at as a quarterback at a Division I level. So I'm selling. I think he throws at least one interception. I hope it's no more than that, and I hope it doesn't change the game like it certainly did against TCU.
Yeah. So if you look at, I don't know, because I can't find. I'm just on OK State's website, and I can't find fumbles. But if you look at Spencer, he's thrown 6 interceptions this year so far, and if you look at those stats. He didn't have an interception against Kansas State, and I don't know if he had a fumble in that game. But if you look at the rest of the games, he didn't have any turnovers against Tulsa.
Yeah, Kansas State was 0 turnovers.
Well, you know what? Did he? Was the Tulsa game the game they had a fumble on the handoff with
that
Chuba?
Was the mesh point.
So there's a turnover against Tulsa. He had 2 interceptions against Iowa State. He had 1 against Texas, but he had 2 or 3 fumbles against Texas. No interception in the Kansas State game. Did you say he had a fumble against Kansas State?
No turnovers in Kansas State.
So that only one game this season where he's had no turnovers, because he had an interception against Oklahoma. He had an interception against Texas Tech, and he had an interception against TCU. So he's had one game this year where he didn't have a turnover, and that was Kansas State. I'm going to put a lot of faith in Spencer, and I'm going to say no turnovers, because Baylor doesn't have a great defense. I think that TCU probably has a better defense than Baylor does. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to say no turnovers, because even, if you look at, like, he only had 1 turnover against TCU, and I think only 1 turnover against Texas Tech, and it was those 2 interceptions. So I'm going to buy. I think he figures it out. And I'm putting faith in you, Spencer. If anyone's listening to this, tell Spencer I got faith in him. No turnovers.
The other reason I don't have faith in this game is because I'm still standing by the point that I don't think Tylen's going to play.
I wouldn't be surprised, though. I'll say that. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a turnover.
Well, I'm with you on that too. But if Tylen doesn't play, like I don't think he will, then he's going to be forcing the ball in some tight spaces.
Well, and I'd be the same way with Tylen. I'd be surprised if he played. I'd be surprised if he didn't play. Because I think personally, I think he'll play, just because of the kind of the player, the athlete, the person that Tylen is. But if it were me, I'd tell him not to play.
No, and that's what I'm saying. It's not to
so
me.
I'd be surprised both ways.
Right. It's not a knock to Tylen.
No, absolutely not.
Go
get your money.
Yeah,
stay healthy.
That's all it is for me.
I would tell all of them not to.
Well, and then
don't play. There's no reason for you. There's no hope at a Big 12 title game.
Right.
You're going to play in some crummy bowl in Texas. I get that you don't want to lose another game or potentially 2 games, God forbid. But all of those guys, are those, at least those 3, and Tevin included, and he's already opted out. Those 4 guys are our first 3-round picks.
Well, and look at wide receivers in the NFL. I mean,
absolutely.
This year alone.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Chase Claypool, all over T. Higgins. These guys are making big-time impacts on their teams. And you're telling me that Tylen's not as talented or more talented than all that?
Tylen is so good.
Yeah, so he's going to make an impact wherever he goes immediately. Buy or sell, Oklahoma State basketball tonight. They're 15.5-point favorites in this one against Oral Roberts. Do they cover? Buy or sell?
Oh, man. I'm going to say buy. Because 15.5 is a hell of a lot closer than the 20-plus they had against Oakland. And going into that game, Oakland was terrible.
Yeah, really
It's
were.
not often that you get a player nailing 10 threes in a ball game. That's
dude couldn't miss.
Unheard. Well, it's an opponent 3 record in Gallagher. So I'll buy it. I think that this Oklahoma State team, we've seen enough in non-conference against non-conference opponents. Maybe not Big 12 play. Well, obviously not Big 12 play. I don't know if it'll carry over, but we've seen enough in the first 4 games that they can turn on the defensive pressure in the second half. They can come back from runs. They can come back from big deficits, and they have enough to jump out to that 15 to 20 point lead. We saw a 20-plus point, nearly a 30-point lead against Texas Southern. UTA was a bit of an anomaly because that was the first game. We saw that they could jump up on Marquette. We saw that they could jump up on Oakland. So I'm going to buy it. 15.5.
Yeah.
I'll buy it.
Okay. I'm gonna buy it too. I think they can win by 16 or more.
Yeah.
And
gotta limit turnovers.
Well, yeah, and I'm also expecting a quick start. This is I'm sure that's something that was preached and practiced this week was, hey, it's not Oakland. It says Oral Roberts, and they've got 2 guys averaging over 20 points right now. They have the ability to put the ball in the basket. Not a great rebounding team, not great defensively, but you guys need to start off quick. Let's not let them think that they have any chance of staying in this game early on. So I'm going to buy that too. I think they can cover. What else you got?
Cade Cunningham breaks 20 points tonight against ORU.
Yeah, I think so. I'll buy that. This is and part of starting out fast is him. And I think because he started out slow against Oakland personally.
He started out. He's kind of allowed. He tries to create for other guys
he does.
early in the game, and then he realizes and turns it on.
It was good to see in terms of when he wasn't necessarily scoring a ton early in the game. You saw Ice pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't just him, but he stepped up big, and it was like, okay, even if Cade's not pouring it in early on, so we got guys that can do it. And like I said, Cade 8 assists. He was facilitating really well. Yeah. His passes, his court vision, I talk about all day. I think it's next level, and that's super important for a combo guard like he is. So I will buy that. I think he has a really nice game tonight. I can see him finishing near 25. It's going to be one of the better games he's had offensively this season, and especially because we saw him also turn it on from beyond the arc against Oakland.
Yeah.
And he had guys in his face. He was hitting contested shots. He was hitting quick threes. I liked his stroke there in that one. So, yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it as well. You look at he put up 21 against UT Arlington. He put up 20 against Texas Southern. Only 13 against Marquette, but other guys turned it on. We had Rondell Walker, we had Bryce Williams, and he had 18 against Oakland. And you look at that Oakland game. It was a quiet 18. He picked up some points late in the ball game. I think he really turns it on. I'm going to buy that. I'm not saying 26, 27 points, but I think he can easily hit 20 for sure.
Okay. Buy or sell? We saw finally. Well, we didn't really see it. We had to kind of read about it and or watch highlights. But the Steelers lost their first game of the season in the NFL to the Washington football team out of all teams. We're going to have more on that coming up in the show. So they lose that one. Didn't look great, and there was, we had talked about it before, that there's issues on this team. Big Ben is not necessarily being able to go deep down the field. They have no run game. They lost an important piece defensively with Bud Dupree out for the season, and they can't quit dropping the football. They have I think it's 31 drops this season. That leads the league. And Mike Tomlin kind of went off on it today and basically said, either catch the ball or go somewhere else.
Maybe you are a MAC team.
Yeah, I know. So that's an issue, man. And it's not like Big Ben is just playing lights out. He's doing good enough. Right. He went over 300 yards, but if his playmakers didn't help him out at all, really, yesterday. So they lose. They have a few more games left in the regular season. The biggest one is coming up against the Bills, who dominated the 49ers last night. And man, Josh Allen looked good. The whole team looked really good. Do they lose another game this season?
I'm gonna buy it. And honestly, there's a chance they could lose 2 more games. I get that the Steelers are much better than the 49ers. There's a lot of teams that are better than the 49ers. But the Bills are playing just about as well as anyone in the country right now. And they go to Buffalo to play that game. And it's a Sunday night game. It's a big game. It'll be on NBC. The Bills will be ready for it. And then you go to the end of the year. The last game is at Cleveland. Now, I get that Cleveland, we've talked about it. Baker Mayfield's not the best quarterback in the league, but he's doing enough right now. He's playing well. The Browns are 9-3 right now, which is probably the best record they've had in at least 30 years. Browns are playing well. That's always a very high emotional game. You go back to the start of the year when they played early. Steelers beat the snot out of the Browns, 38-7. So that's going to be a big revenge game for the Browns, and they're playing really well. So I'm going to buy it. I think they lose at least one, and I think it's going to be this week, and I think they drop back-to-back. I think they lose in Buffalo. And there's a really good chance they lose to the Browns at the end of the year. Even if they don't beat Buffalo, there's a good chance they lose. So I'll buy it. I think they lose one of those 2 games.
Yeah,
both.
I've been buying it for a while.
Yeah.
I think that especially last night with the way Buffalo's played, there's been times this year, and look, here's the thing. Against the Cardinals when they had the Hail Mary play, go against them, they could have folded at that point. That's detrimental. You don't lose on a Hail Mary. But, man, Josh Allen showed last night he's going to be in the MVP conversation when the season is over. The offensive line, there was no pressure on Josh Allen from the Niners. I know they're banged up, but that offensive line was really, really playing well. The defense played good enough. And, man, they've got playmakers as a receiver. They really do. And you wouldn't think Stephon Diggs, he's awesome. I mean, he's close to a top 5 receiver. It probably is a top 5 receiver this year. And Cole Beasley, anybody that's a Cowboys fan remembers him, a Dallas fan, he's coming back alive. Now with no John Brown, he had a huge game last night, and he's like your prototypical slot receiver, really quick, really good hands. So it's fun to watch him too. I like the Bills a lot, man. I think they're scary. And they're going to beat, if Pittsburgh comes out and plays like that, it won't even be close because that wasn't a good game. Washington, you look at their record, 4-7 come into that game. They're not supposed to beat the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. There's concern. If you're a Steelers fan, I think there's a little bit of concern. Ultimately, what that did right there, that loss helped Kansas City out a ton. Mm-hmm. And we've been comparing them to Kansas City all year for the top 2 teams. You're telling me the way they played yesterday, Kansas City wouldn't have any issue beating them? I mean, they didn't scare anybody yesterday. So there's a little bit of concern there. Now, I know it's virtually impossible to go undefeated in the NFL any season. The Dolphins did it, back in the 70s, and that was, I'm sure everyone was excited on that team. It's like, oh my gosh, we make sure that didn't happen again this year. But still, I think the Steelers are a legitimately good team. But they've got some things to fix and not a long time to fix them. They got to make, and I know that's crazy because we're talking about a one-loss team. But there were a lot of things they showed yesterday that cause for concern, no doubt. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we'll get to the rest of our buy or sells. A couple crazy stories out of college football we'll get to as well later on. And then we talked about that Steelers game, but what about the other side? Because there was a Washington football team playing, but the quarterback situation is really the story of the day. We'll get to that and much more coming up. Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
There's only one station dedicated.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You happen, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I wanna know, could you show me what I'm missing? In the plane out of Southern California.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network, show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop. Plenty of time. Go get your favorite beers, wine, spirits. Check them out, 128 North Main. And Perfect gifts for your coworkers and your drinking buddies. We've all got our drinking buddies.
Yeah.
Prepackaged, ready-to-wrap beer samplers, hundreds of different beers. Plus, you got wine gift bags, wine gift boxes, and over 3,000 different wines to put them in. If you can't find a wine there that you want, that's your own problem. They have over 3,000 choices. Good stuff there at Brown's Bottle Shop. We were in buy or sell. I think it was your turn, Zach.
It is, and it's going to lead us into our next topic.
All right.
So I've had to change it. I've had to throw a curveball because it was Ohio State's 29-point favorites over Michigan. Are they going to cover?
Which would have been yes.
I would have bought that, but now it has to be. Now that the game is canceled, the Big Ten will allow Ohio State to go out and find another game to get to that 6th win mark to try to make the playoffs, buy or sell.
You know what? It's a complete failure by the Big Ten, first of all. I mean, we're going to get to this in a minute, but just a complete, utter failure by the Big Ten. I think they... Man, you know what? I'm actually going to sell because I think they're going to change the rules. Okay? So they're going to, and there was rumors of that already being talked about, that the Big Ten would go in and change it to where, well, if they have 5, we're going to let them get in. But the interesting topic has been brought up, like you've said, and we've both seen it from other sports guys as well, that Texas A&M's game is canceled with Ole Miss. That's the 4 and the 5 team in the country, and they both don't have games this weekend. Why not pair them up? The Big Ten says go for it, but here's why they won't. It's a stupid excuse, but it's what will happen. If that were to be floated from Ryan Day, they'd say, well, we just can't trust anybody outside of the conference with their testing protocols and all that, even though the SEC has been right up there with everybody
really good
in terms of, they've had
really surprising.
They've been hit like everybody else, but they've had most of their games played. Like, I know they've had issues, but they've been really good in terms of, testing all the time, like everybody. The SEC is the premier where you want to go in college football. That's it. So that excuse is, I can see it already being floated out there, and it's really a ridiculous excuse. So I'm going to sell it because I just don't. I've lost all faith in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Their decision making is some of the worst I've ever seen, and I think the decision to first of all cancel the season and then wait as long as they did to reinstate it will go down as the worst decision ever in college sports and like a top 3 worst decision in sports in general of all time, and probably, I hope at least, the worst we'll ever see in our lifetimes.
I'm going to buy it on a contingency.
Okay.
Because I think that I'm going to buy it but I could see the Big Ten changing the rule if Ohio State can't find anyone to play. I think that Ohio State gets in. I think they get into the CFP. There's too much money involved. They're too big of a name to not let it. And I think that the Big Ten allows them to try to find somebody because of what you said. I think because of how monumental that screw up was. And and you and I were talking about it during the break. I think the Big Ten would have let them come back sooner had they not already made massive fools of themselves. If I think they found out probably, maybe not like a week or two later, but maybe 3 or 4 weeks after their decision to cancel the season, that, you know what, maybe things aren't as bad as we had originally thought or had originally been told. We can see that these other teams, other conferences, on a large, wide scale can do it very safely. Their testing protocols are okay. They can keep their players safe by keeping them away from other students and out of town. And so maybe we should come back, but we were so firm in our stance that we don't want to look like jackasses. So we're going to try to ride this as long as we can before we say, you know what, we've talked about it, we've consulted people, we're going to come back, we're going to play. So I don't think the Big Ten says, you know what, you can't find anybody else, because I think that would make them look even worse. But if let's just say they do say that, God forbid, or Ohio State can't find anybody, I do think they change the rule and they get in. So that's my contingency is if Ohio State can't find anybody, I think they still get in because the Big Ten changes it. Like we said a couple weeks ago, there's too much money.
You weren't here yet, with me when the Big Ten made the decision, and it was one of those, like, I get the decision right before my show started,
right.
And it happened to be a day where I was by myself.
Oh, that's nice.
And I just
Gives you all the top.
That's
2 hours.
Yeah, with 2 hours, I went crazy on them. I mean, that's one of the more heated things that I've ever talked about because of drove me crazy. Still does. I get fired up thinking about the Big Ten and how stupid that decision was. And anybody that, calm down now.
Okay.
Anybody that didn't play, high school sports, whatever. We're sitting here now knowing how doable all that was. There was always going to be hurdles.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was never that was never an issue. We knew that was going to happen. We were hearing when at the time that doctors and other conferences, medical professionals had figured out, hey, we're thinking we can get this done. And not only that, they laid out plans for how it could get done. And the Big Ten came out and was hoping that the other Power Fives would join. I don't think they expected, still to this day, the backlash they got from players from all over. Chuba was one. Politicians. The president of everybody that stepped in and had something to say back to us. They were like, whoa, maybe that decision was a little, but it's just like you said, pride was in the way.
I absolutely get canceled in the season if, two games into it, you're 2 weeks in and you've got, 30 players on half the teams in the country that are sick, or testing. I get, okay, well, you know what? Maybe it wasn't safe.
Well, and if the myocarditis, that was the other thing.
Yeah,
they said that their excuse was myocarditis. We had we can't trust that this happens, and that was immediately debunked. Sure. They hadn't found anybody in college sports that was really dealing with any of that issue because of the coronavirus.
There were the standalone. You had a handful, but it wasn't on a wide scale.
No,
and there's issues, and that's the thing is. I get it. Like I'm not sitting here thinking that COVID's not real or that it's not dangerous. I get it, but these colleges, even over the summers, I over the summers you had articles and stories coming out of, well, you know what, you guys are young, you guys are healthy, let's get you positive, because then you're good for the season, you're good for 3 or 4 months. I get that, but but you look at the way this season has gone. You get like Shane Illingworth. Mm-hmm. That could have been really detrimental because if Spencer goes down or he throws 3 interceptions against TCU, you're going with Ethan Bullock or you're going with a walk-on. But there hasn't been wide scale positives. You had Baylor and now obviously Michigan. Now whether those are true positives or not, we'll probably never know. But on a wide scale, it's been pretty safe.
Well, yeah.
Keep the players isolated. You keep them away from everyone. You're testing at least 3 times a week. So yeah, I think the Big Ten got super embarrassed, and I think they were really prideful, and I think they just said, you know what, we're going to ride this into the ground and as long as we can, and then we'll come back and we'll try to make some money.
That was the argument the players that were making that even filed the lawsuits. That's what we talked about over and over. I said, you know what, they are the safest at these universities. Yeah. There were so many holes in what the Big Ten was saying, where you had reason to be super skeptical or try to figure out what exactly they were basing this off of. We've known from the start,
and I understand their premise. We didn't know too much about it then. It was super scary, but when the information came out, like, well, it's not that bad. We can keep them safe here. Then they should have stepped back and said, you know what, maybe the people we talked to. Maybe they didn't quite know as much as they should have known.
And particularly, we did know, at least at that time and still now even more, that young, healthy people are rarely affected.
Right.
And they didn't take that into account. They didn't take the data into account. And then they went on and decided to make this decision. All they had to do was do what the SEC did, which there was no
really
reason.
Fast too.
Yeah, just wait.
Yeah.
There was no. And this was premeditated. It was a mess. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. Caller, you're on the Afternoon Sports Drive with Patrick and Zach.
Well, just like Hugh Freeze at Liberty being afraid to play Coastal Carolina, and they didn't want to lose that game, so that's why 14 days ahead of time they decided they weren't going to play that game because of the coronavirus. Michigan, they suck. Their donors can go pay $2 million to fly their team for a European vacation, which now looks like another Lampoon vacation, and they're just trying to put the screws to Ohio State because they suck and there's nothing they can do about it. And I hope that Ohio State just kicks the living daylights out of them for the rest of my lifetime because that's what they're trying to do. That's just it. They just are terrible and they don't want to go get embarrassed by 40 or 50 points. And their coach sucks, their team sucks, their school sucks, their state sucks. And that's the whole deal. I can't even imagine our coach even surviving this.
Well, he couldn't beat Ohio State before COVID.
Yeah.
There was no way this team was going to beat Ohio State. I don't care I don't care where they played. It doesn't matter. There was no way that Michigan was going to beat them. And so in a time and place and a day now where you don't have to really prove that they're positive tests, or that, well, he tested positive, and he actually tested positive, but he had lunch with these 6 guys, and these 6 guys had class with these 12 guys, and, well, we only have 45 guys available. Sorry.
Jim Harbaugh has been the most overrated head coach in college football for a long time. A long, long time, and he's way past his due.
I don't care if he beat a number 1, number 2 USC with a terrible Stanford team with an inexperienced quarterback. That don't matter.
No, and it goes back to, Kirk Herbstreit had the comments last week, and people ripped him for it.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, how could you think that Michigan would do that? That's irresponsible. Okay, when this does happen, you and I, by the way, both said that it would, and it has happened.
How badly do you think Kirk Herbstreit wanted to jump on his Twitter account?
That's what I'm saying.
And send out a tweet today?
He literally, it is his job to talk about things.
Absolutely.
He did.
He's no longer a Ohio State quarterback.
No.
He's proven over the years that he can be unbiased.
He's an ESPN analyst who gets paid to talk college football. He gave his opinion on what might be going on, and now all of us are thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just human to understand. To think some of that.
Nice choice, Dax Hill. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I will say, though, I don't blame Dax for going to Michigan. He was a little wishy-washy. He goes to Michigan, he goes to Alabama, ends up committing to Alabama, commits to Michigan. I guess he was committed to Michigan or something. It was really weird, a lot of back and forth, but Michigan's a hell of a program. They've got great history. They're not good, but they got a hell of a history. It's a hell of a university. You can get a great education, and Oklahoma State fans don't want to hear this, but I don't think Dax Hill was ever considering Oklahoma State. Maybe in the beginning, and I know Oklahoma State was pouring absolutely everything they had at them. Imagine a defense this year with Trey Sterling, Colby Harvell-Peel, Rodarius Williams, and Dax Hill. Imagine that defense.
Man.
Imagine how good that would be.
Yeah.
But I was never confident that Dax was coming to Oklahoma State. I know that's blasphemy, that I'm even with his brother. But we found out from his brother that he wasn't particularly happy towards the end of his career.
Yeah, it's true.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, that Dax didn't show up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
Get him on Twitter at ZLancaster91. I'm at the Patty Wheels. When we come back here on the Afternoon Sports Drive, amazing story out of the NFL last night. A comeback.
That's going to be what I learned today.
We're just going to combine it.
Oh, my gosh.
A comeback has been completed for one NFL quarterback. It's coming up next. Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster Show, brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop. Get your favorite drinks, beers, wine, spirits, all available at Brown's Bottle Shop. Appreciate them as always. So we're going to do a little combined what we learned here. Because it is something that is so monumental in the world of sports, and it's kind of come to a head with a completion, I think, at least personally, for this player. So before we do that, we got to get to this.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter.
The question is, what did you learn?
Let's find out what the guys learned today on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, I learned something today.
We learned the same thing, and that is
we did.
That Alex Smith
is one of the strongest human beings of all time.
He had the completion tour. And I'm not saying for him completely, necessarily, 100% complete, because the ultimate goal is to make the playoffs and all that stuff. But he comes in last night and beats the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. And he played good enough. And here's the thing. He's actually in a really good situation with the Washington team because the defense is really good, man. They got Chase Young, and that front seven is formidable, no doubt. And they played a big part in what they were able to do yesterday in terms of limiting Pittsburgh. At the same time, Alex Smith gets enough to get his guys in field goal range. They win the game. He did it against, like you said, that Pittsburgh defense, which is elite. And I'm telling you, it couldn't have got, to me, much better than this for him, because going through the surgeries and all that, 17 surgeries, I repeat it every time because that's just insane. If you haven't watched E60, you got to do it. He almost died, for crying out loud.
Viewer discretion is advised,
absolutely,
though.
yes. If you're squeamish, you're going to want to look away at some times. But you see, that's kind of what put it into perspective for a lot of people, though, is when they saw what his leg looked like, it was like almost gone. It looked like they compared it and even did rehab training to a roadside bomb blowing up your leg. He goes through all of that. And I think that part of it, too, if you not just the physical toll he went through, but mentally. Yeah. I mean, dude almost died. It's crazy with that happening, and then having the fortitude to get back out there on a field, which I debated this offseason over and over, and even into the NFL season. Would I personally allow him to play if I am the GM of the Washington football team? You know, would I feel good enough about, and I'm the coach, putting him out there if I'm Ron Rivera?
I'm surprised that his wife let him.
Well, that's
for real.
Yeah, she, no doubt, but he did it. He took one step on the field, and that was a huge accomplishment. Just getting back on the field, and it's actually kind of comical to bring this up because Dwayne Haskins literally got benched for a guy that had half a leg. Yeah, I mean, and he comes back. So Dwayne Haskins, which by the way, he's done a good job of accepting all this, and he's I think moved on. But wow, what a terrible thing he's gone through in terms of being benched. But Alex Smith comes in and kind of caps it off, and I said this on Twitter. To me, this is, because I don't expect Washington to get anywhere near a Super Bowl, but this is as good as anything as a Super Bowl right here. Coming out and not just beating the team, but handing the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers their first loss. Playing good enough, by the way, since he's been back. He's played pretty well. I mean, he's looked good and he's thrown the ball, and you brought it up to me in the break. Kansas City, that was where a lot of people heard. If they didn't know a ton about Alex Smith, they heard a lot of us Kansas City fans complaining about Alex Smith. And there's a fair amount of that went on, no doubt, because there were the weapons there with Patrick Mahomes right now that were there, and there wasn't a lot going on. Part of that was because, obviously, Alex Smith isn't Patrick Mahomes, but at the same time, the offense was not opening the playbook for him at all. They weren't allowing him to use Tyreek Hill. It was weird. So there was a lot of complaint, but he did a ton of good things for Kansas City. And maybe the most important thing he did for Kansas City was mentor Patrick Mahomes for a year. And if you listen to anything Mahomes has said, the knowledge he learned from Alex Smith, who's as good of a team player as anybody else and so knowledgeable at quarterback, if you look at what he did through college and into the NFL when he was with the Niners and all that, crazy stuff. I mean, he's really, really good. And that was invaluable. That information that Mahomes learned, I'm telling you, I believe that fully made him closer to what, helped him get to where he is right now in his career. So Alex Smith, he's come back a player of the decade. There's nobody else that you can look at and say was able to come back from so much adversity, and he capped it off last night. And I am such a fan of Alex Smith and what he does. So great to see.
Yeah, my first experience with Alex Smith was Kansas City fans complaining about Alex Smith. And then
understandable.
But the first time I ever learned anything about Alex Smith was when I watched the E60 of Alex Smith. Alex Smith is 1, lucky to be alive. 2, lucky to still have a leg. 3, lucky to even walk. Right? You're watching this, and like you said, they have to ship him to a military rehab facility, a military hospital, because the injury and he had a successful surgery, and then you had the bacteria, the flesh-eating bacteria set in, and all the dead tissue and dead muscle and all that stuff. And so when it got to that point, it was comparable to an IED going off.
Well, and wasn't that the biggest issue, is that you've seen broken legs in the NFL and people recover fully from
Absolutely.
them. And it's something, for instance,
it was the bacteria.
Yeah, like what happened to Dak this year. He's going to fully recover from that. The one thing you never think of is, like I said, that happening and an infection that bad. Yeah. And I think you watch the E60, what got a lot of people, and what got me personally on the E60, was when they asked the doctor their advice, said, what would you do if this was your leg? Yeah. She goes, I'd amputate.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what he's feeling at that moment?
Gosh.
And then he said, but it wasn't even hesitation.
Yeah.
He's like, no,
save it.
Keeping it.
Try to save it.
Correct.
So you're fighting all that, and then 2 or 3 years later, not only did he get cleared medically by the NFL, but his wife was comfortable enough with him going back out, because quarterbacks are not, they're protected but we've seen in the past 2 or 3 weeks, he takes shots. He takes hits. So not only is he mentally prepared to take hits, but they mentally cleared him, and he's physically and mentally able, and he didn't just sit on the sideline. He was good enough to replace Dwayne Haskins and go back out there, and he's won ball games.
He earned a starting job. That's legit.
He's won. He's not. He hasn't gone out there and struggled.
Yeah.
He's won ball games,
Yeah.
and he beat the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. He's not the comeback player of the decade. That's one of the greatest comeback stories in all of sport. Period.
Really is.
So good. Alex Smith, probably my favorite NFL player, and I've watched him play 2 games, maybe. I watched him beat Dallas, and I don't even know what the other game was because I don't really care that much, I guess. But man, Alex Smith, man, that's the fortitude and the wherewithal to come back from that. Kudos.
Yeah.
Bravo, man.
Really
that's
is.
so impressive.
Yeah, and Levi just texted, which he's right. He did. I saw the
He
replay.
beat Dallas, Levi.
I saw the replay where he got cleated in that game, and his leg is gushing blood.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude,
I'm okay.
Yeah, that's nothing to him.
I'm okay.
I mean, the strength that he showed, that's where it's going to, I think, affect people that don't even care about sports.
Honorary NFL Hall of Famer.
Oh, I mean,
put him in the league. Put him in the hall.
People that aren't sports fans that hear about this story and look into it, that's inspirational
Absolutely.
for anybody. So I think he's done more than he knows just by coming back and showing people that it is possible.
Absolutely.
Because it shouldn't have been possible.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of hurdles that he never should have got over and managed to do it all. And I mean, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers undefeated team, that's just unbelievable.
I don't care what quarterback it is.
Look
for
at
Alex Smith to do it, man.
Look at all the quarterbacks that haven't done it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that haven't done it.
Yeah.
And he came in and got the starting job. Just incredible.
Yeah, Dallas certainly didn't beat him.
No, but they made it scarily close, and I did not get that at all.
Yeah.
So that was weird. Show brought to you by Brown's Bottle Shop, 128 North Main on Stillwater. At Stillwater, a corner of Main and Miller. Call them at 372-5080. You get free curbside pickup. They're open until 10 o'clock. You got plenty of time to get your favorite wines, beers. And right now, while you're there, might as well grab some stocking stuffers and get everybody ready for Christmas. Oklahoma State basketball tonight. Tip-off in less than 2 hours on ESPN Plus against Oral Roberts. That's Zach Lancaster. I'm Patrick Wheeler. See you back here tomorrow with Tom Dorado, the Afternoon Sports Drive.